Your client testimonials aren't converting like they used to, and your content, it gets likes and comments, but no one's actually buying, and prospects seem interested, but then they end up ghosting you. So your sales cycles are dragging on for weeks or months, and when they do finally get a response from people, it's to tell you that you're too expensive. So you keep tweaking your messaging, you post more, you try harder to stand out, and nothing changes. Here's why: you don't actually have a marketing problem. You're in a commoditization trap. And every strategy you've been sold to try and escape it, like niching down, adding more value, providing better service, is actually making it worse, because differentiation doesn't protect you from commoditization. It feeds it. So every time you try to stand out, you're still competing in the same category as everyone else. You're still fighting to be the best version of what already exists. And as long as buyers can compare you, you'll always be competing on price. So the brands that charge premium rates and never hear you're too expensive, they're not trying to be different. They're incomparable. They've stepped out of the comparison game entirely by owning a category where no one can compete, copy, or question their price. So in this episode, I'm going to show you exactly how to do it, why differentiation is dead, why niching down keeps you small, and how to escape the commoditization trap by creating a business that defines its own category and becomes the only choice. Now, hey, and welcome back to the Business Real Talk, where we cut the fluff and show you the no BS way for you to build a successful and sustainable business in half the time. Now, last week, we talked about what I call the intent activation system, how you actually turn comments into clients in 48 hours by detecting high intent buyers and activating them strategically before they end up moving on. Now, because now you know how to trigger intent, you stop chasing attention and you start attracting action. Now, that episode was all about conversions in the moment. But today we're going to zoom out, because even if you're activating the right buyers, it doesn't matter if they still see you as one of many options. Because if your market sees you as just another option out there, you're still going to be stuck justifying your price and competing for attention. And that's the trap that most business owners don't realize that they're in. They've built credibility, visibility, and even consistency, but they're still being compared. That's why today we're going to dive into how to escape that commoditization trap, why differentiation is dead, and how to actually make your business so incomparable you never have to prove your value again. Now, let's get real. You don't just want more clients. You want clients who actually get it, the ones who find you and instantly know that you're the one that they've been looking for, because you're done explaining your value or justifying your prices and fighting to try and prove why you're worth it. You want people who show up already convinced, they're already sold, they're already asking, how the heck do we get started? Because you want to be able to charge premium prices without having to dress it up in fancy marketing or endless sales calls. And you want your brand to stand on its own, so that even if someone does try to copy you, they couldn't touch what you do or how you do it, so that your growth ends up feeling inevitable, because your business isn't going to fight to stand out. It's operating in a league of its own. Yet, if we're being completely honest, most businesses are chasing this and still end up blending in. They're doing all the right things, but they sound like everyone else. And it's not because they're not great at what they do. It's because they've fallen into a trap that almost no one sees coming. So here's how this trap works, okay? The more the market grows, the smaller the difference between businesses start to look. So what once used to make you stand out now just makes you similar enough to be compared. So I want you to test it for a second. If I covered up your business name and your logo and I put your homepage next to 5 of your top competitors, would anyone actually be able to tell which one was yours? I want you to be honest, because the promises probably all sound familiar, don't they? The headlines start to overlap. Even your unique framework probably looks like a remix of someone else's. And it's not because you're not original. It's because the market has been trained to communicate in sameness. So when everyone else is offering a similar promise or using the same frameworks and saying the same things in slightly different words, the brain stops noticing any differences. And the second your audience can't tell the difference, their brain is going to do what it was wired to do. It looks for the cheapest or easiest option. It's kind of like you walking down the aisle at Target and seeing every single box that claims new and improved, every label that says best choice. Now, after a while, your brain starts to tune it out. That's the commoditization trap. It's what happens when people stop feeling your difference and start comparing your value. You end up going from being the discovery that they've been waiting for to just another option on the shelf. And here's the part that stings the most. The harder you try to stand out by saying we get better results or we care more or we offer premium services, the deeper you sink into that trap because surface level differentiation doesn't protect you. It feeds that commoditization. It tells the market that you're still playing the same game. You're just trying to be the best version of what already exists. So let's define what this actually is because the commoditization trap isn't caused by innovation. It's caused by imitation that's disguised as innovation. So it starts out really innocent. Someone does something new that works and a competitor notices. So they replicate it. And pretty soon, what stood out before now becomes a new standard. That's the cycle, right? We stand out, we get replicated, we become a commodity. And it happens in every industry because I want you to think about, remember when those online courses were super rare and exciting? Now everybody has one. Remember when done for you agencies felt really premium? Now it's kind of the default because when your difference lives on the surface in your offer, in your process, in your marketing, then it's only a matter of time before it gets copied because real innovation doesn't happen at the surface. It happens beneath it at the category level when it changes how people think, not just what they buy. And that's where comparison ends and the only choice begins. And service businesses are especially vulnerable because we don't sell physical products. We sell expertise. And expertise is invisible until it's actually experienced. So the market compares what it can see, our words, our offers, our prices, our frameworks. That's why even brilliant businesses start sounding the same because it's not this lack of skill, it's this lack of visibility in their difference. And this is where most businesses will double down. They'll do the very things that got them trapped in the first place. So they try to prove that they're different. They talk louder about their results. They experience their services. But all that does is make them sound even more like everyone else fighting for the same attention. Because when everyone's using the same proof to stand out, no one actually stands out. Now, this shows up in data. A study that was recently done of 2,000 business owners that were asked one simple question. Why should someone choose you over your competitors? Now, the answers were almost identical. We get better results, we care more, we give better services. Sound familiar, right? That's because those were exactly what we were taught to say. But those aren't differentiators anymore. They're expectations. Every good business should care. Every good business should get results. Every good business should have great service. So when everyone's saying that, none of it means anything. It's kind of like a dating profile that says, I'm kind, loyal, and love to laugh. Okay, so does everyone else. That's how the commoditization trap shows up in your marketing. You think you're highlighting your uniqueness, but you're actually just confirming your similarity. So you do what any great business entrepreneur does. You tweak your messaging, you rebrand, you change your colors, your copy, your funnels, and for a while it works until it doesn't. Because surface level differentiation is temporary by design. It's easy to copy. It keeps you in the comparison game and it measured against everyone else that's out there. So you're not creating the rules, you're just trying to win by the ones that already exist. Now, some people respond to that by saying,
Okay, I'll just niche down.
and it sounds smart, right? Less competition, clearer messaging, easier sales. But the catch is when you niche down, you're still competing inside that niche. You've just made the market smaller, but you haven't made your competition irrelevant. So you're playing the same game, you've just moved to a smaller field. And if everyone in that niche is saying the same things, you're still commoditized, you're just in a smaller pool. That's why niching down can grow clarity, but it actually caps your potential. You can't scale a niche that's built on sameness. So what's the way out, right? If it's not differentiation, if it's not niching, I want you to understand that the answer is category ownership. Owning your category means that you stop trying to be better and you start being beyond comparison. So you define the rules of your market, you decide what matters. Everyone else is now reacting to you. When you own that category, there's no more competition. There's only alternatives to what you do. So it eliminates price competition because you're no longer in that comparison game. People can't compare what they can't categorize. That's what makes you incomparable. So The question becomes, how do you actually own a category where no one else can copy you or compete with you? Now, owning a category, first and foremost, means creating a market space that didn't exist before you. I want to clarify this because so many people try to solve an innovation problem with marketing. But it's not about that, right? It's about creating the category defining theory that's going to shape how your market actually thinks. When you do this, you're no longer competing, you're leading. People aren't comparing you to anyone else because they're adopting your framework, your lens, and your approach. So let me show you what that looks like in the real world. You've heard of Simon Sinek, right? He didn't just teach leadership. He created the category of purpose-driven leadership thinking. So this idea of start with why. It's not just a method that you compare other leadership books to. It's a lens that changes how organizations, teams, and leaders think about motivation and purpose. People aren't looking for a cheaper or better version. They're adopting his way of thinking. Or Trader Joe's, right? They didn't just sell groceries. They created the category of fun, curated grocery experiences. So shopping there isn't just about comparing prices or products. It's about this treasure hunt, the quirky products, the personality of the store. Other supermarkets sell food, but none do it with the identity of Trader Joe's, who does it with this experience. And Canva is another amazing example that completely revolutionized the design world. They didn't just make another graphics tool. They defined the category of accessible and easy design for non-designers. So this isn't Photoshop and it's not Figma, right? It's something entirely new. It empowers anyone to create professional looking designs effortlessly. And when you think of easy and fast design for everyday people, you think Canva. So here's the common thread. These category leaders aren't trying to compete. They're creating a space where comparison doesn't even exist. So their innovation isn't just on the surface, it's in how the market thinks, how the audience experiences the solution, and how the rules are ultimately defined. So how do you actually do this? How do you stop playing in a crowded and competitive field and start owning your category? I call this the steal the spotlight because, simply put, you go from unknown or relatively unknown person to overnight sensation because you steal the spotlight using this category defining theory. So let me break it down. Now, before you can create a category of your own, you need to see what the market can't see. This is the gap, that frustration, the inefficiency, the blind spots that are keeping your clients stuck. Now, most businesses ignore this. They copy what's already working in the market. They tweak the same offers. They use the same messaging and the same tactics. And the result is that there's more noise, more comparison, more price, more pressure, right? But instead, I want you to think of Ring Doorbell, right? The home security was a complete nightmare before they entered. They were complicated systems, expensive hardware, super reactive alerts, and people were really frustrated, confused, and honestly feeling a little helpless in the process. So some companies tried to fix it with better cameras or fancier alarms, but they were missing the core problem, which was that people wanted security that was simple, proactive, and always connected. That gap was invisible to competitors, but Ring saw it. They filled it and they created a completely brand new market entirely. Suddenly, no one was comparing doorbells anymore. They were comparing a complete solution to a problem nobody else was solving. Or look at Canva, right? Traditional design tools were complicated and intimidating, and the gap was that people needed a way to express their ideas beautifully without having to master complex software. Now, that insight was what created the opening for a product that didn't just compete, it defined the whole idea of what design meant for millions of people. See, the market can only compare what it can see. So those features, those colors, those funnels, those different surface level things, they're easy to copy, but the gaps that your clients are silently enduring, those are invisible. Those are where you have the chance to become incomparable. So the questions you need to start asking yourself is, what are the problems that my clients are silently struggling with that nobody else is solving? And then what are the frustrations that people have normalized that actually I could make disappear? When you identify the market gap, you're not just finding a new offer, you're finding a place that nobody else is playing. And it's the foundation for everything that's going to follow from here on out. Now, if you're sitting here being like, Naz, I have no idea how to even begin this process, you need to click the link inside of the show notes or down below in the description, because I have a complete process on how we actually support our clients in creating this. I'm talking about people who have been in business for decades, experts who have truly created something revolutionary, who are sitting on gold but have no idea how to actually go through a process that creates that. And we've defined and created a process that within 45 days allows you to identify where is that market gap first and foremost. I help you find that market gap and then help you fill that market gap with your category defining theory. So let's move on to the next piece of the puzzle, because that's where we create the disruptive theory and that proprietary methodology that allows you to create a category of one. So the second piece of the puzzle is actually defining your disruptive theory. So have you ever noticed how there's some brands that just never compete? They rewrite the rules entirely. So take Peloton. Gyms offered treadmills and classes, and Peloton didn't just add another bike. They said fitness isn't about access to equipment. It's about connection. It's about motivation. It's about accountability wherever you are. Now, suddenly the question wasn't, which gym should I join? It was, how do I join a movement that makes working out addictive? That is disruptive theory. It's not about adding another feature or tweaking your copy or polishing your offer. It's about creating a new lens through which your audience sees their problem and your solution. Without it, you just become another option competing on hours, features, and price. But with it, you define the game and that comparison stops. So competitors are still playing by the old rules while you've moved the entire goalpost over. So I want you to think about it this way. You have to stop looking at it from a marketing perspective and instead look at it from what you actually look at and how you think that's different, right? Surface differentiation is invisible over time, and disruptive theory is invisible to copy. It's undeniable to the audience. It changes how they think, what they do, how they operate inside of that system. So once you own that, comparison ends. Competitors don't even play your game. They're stuck in the same old way of thinking. So for me in my world, it was flipping the entire concept of you trying to sell your leads into how do you get your leads to sell themselves? That disruptive theory is what really catapulted everything else within my category defining movement. So I want you to think of your market like a maze. Everyone else is sprinting inside of it, right? They're competing on speed, on agility, but you instead, you pick up the maze, you rotate it, you reveal the exit, and suddenly there's no competition because the old rules just no longer apply. So I have tons of client examples of doing this, but Erica's is one of my favorite. She was looking at how we help people create job searches, right? And so often we think of a job search as resumes and applications. And the gap was that people didn't know how to stand out with resumes and applications. Now, her theory was that job search is actually leadership positioning. So clients weren't competing on resumes. They were shaping a career narrative that no one else could teach. She was able to quite literally define a whole new theory and a whole new category by simply understanding this category defining theory. Okay. Another great example is Airbnb. Airbnb was in the past. So before Airbnb, travel was about hotels, right? The gap was that people wanted comfort, affordability, a sense of home. And so the theory was that they created that travel isn't about a bed. It's about living anywhere like it's your own home. So suddenly the question isn't which hotel, it's where can I feel at home? Okay. So what you need to ask yourself is, what assumptions about my market am I currently flipping? What's the old paradigm that people are stuck in? And how can I position my solution so it changes how they see the problem, not just how they buy a solution? That's why I say when we talk about this work, it is not just about marketing. Because when you own the theory, you're not just selling, you create this category. People aren't comparing you, they're learning a new way to think, and your solution is the only answer that ends up making sense. And here's the thing. Spotting the market gap, defining your disruptive theory, it's powerful, but it's not enough to fully own your category, okay? The next piece is how you actually turn that theory into a movement and a repeatable system that creates this market-defining methodology that makes your business the only choice. So you spotted the market gap. You flipped the paradigm with your disruptive theory. Now it's time to make that theory real. So I want you to turn it into something that your audience can actually see, touch, and follow, because you could have a great theory, but if your audience doesn't understand it, they can't see it, they can't feel it, this is where the problem lies. So oftentimes I use the example of iPhones, right? Like we sit here and we don't have to question if the iPhone is different. We can touch it, we can feel it, we can experience it. Or even Beyonce, right? She has some incredible life-changing way that she creates music. And we don't have to sit here and try and figure out why it's different. We can hear it. We can turn on Spotify. We can experience that. that. As a service provider, that's missing. We don't have that option. Our support, our expertise is kind of invisible. But what we can do is actually flip and turn your category defining theory into an innovative method. So this is where your category becomes, it starts coming to life. So I want you to think of it like Tony Robbins, right? He didn't just talk about personal growth or success strategies. He created his neuroassociative conditioning. It's a repeatable system that teaches people how to change their habits, their mindset, and it gives them those results step by step. Now, that system isn't just a course, it's a movement, it's a methodology that only he can deliver at scale. Same thing goes with Canva. The gap was the design tools were too complicated. So it's not about mastering software, it's about expressing your ideas beautifully, simply, and quickly. So their system is drag and drop templates, pre-built layouts, instant collaboration. Suddenly, graphic design isn't something that you need to learn for months. It's something that anyone could do in minutes. So here's the key. Once you create that category defining theory, it's what your proprietary and innovative system is what makes your category real. So this is what clients can follow, what they can experience, what they can see and get results from. And it's impossible to copy because it's built on your disruptive theory and your unique approach. So competitors can mimic the surface level tactics that you use, but they can't compete with and replicate the underlying logic, the philosophy, the sequence that makes your system work. This is how you create a category that only you can lead, where you are no longer chasing and having to fall into that commoditization trap, but you're creating something that truly stands on its own and creates a space where people are coming to you. Now, building a category is just one piece of the puzzle because the real magic happens when your market actually chooses you without hesitation, without back and forth, without you chasing that. And that's exactly what the easiest method does. So I want to break this down for you, starting with step one, which is winning the market. So this is all of what we talked about today, creating your category of defining theory, having what we call your innovative advantage. Now, your best clients aren't searching for a slightly better version of what everyone else is doing, right? They're looking for a breakthrough that makes them say, this is exactly what I've been waiting for. That's where we create your innovation gap methodology, the framework that first defines the category defining theory that you've created and then puts that together inside of your own innovation gap methodology that positions you as the solution in your market. So you can stop competing, you can start dominating. Clients recognize your value instantly, they invest without hesitation, and your results speak for themselves. This is how our clients are 5 to 10xing their prices while clients are lining up to work with them right now. And best part about this is how you leave your legacy and create your mark. Now, the second step of that is how you turn your method into a bingeable decision system. Now, I want you to think of Netflix. They don't just hope that you watch the next episode, right? They make it impossible for you to not get to it. They auto cue the next one. They tease the story. They set you up to say yes. And that's exactly what the bingeable decision system does for your prospects. Your leads move through the sales process like they're binging a show. So they sell themselves on working with you at every single step of the process. So this works because we use what we call mirrored decision making, which is our proprietary psychology process that takes the natural process that people go through to make any decision and mirrors that inside of a bingeable system. So inside of my mini series, you'll see it set up in a way where my clients are binging through the process. They're making micro decisions. And by the time they come out on the other side, they're pre-sold. They're saying, holy crap, where has this been all my whole life? Now, the third and final piece is actually delivering on your promise with what I call the happy client machine. Now, marketing and sales just aren't enough. You need to actually be able to deliver results that turn clients into raving fans. The happy client machine is exactly what does that. It allows you to create those world-class results at scale without your constant involvement. This is where your reputation grows. This is how your business runs smoother. This is where you create the opportunity to take your methodology and turn it into multiple different streams of income, from having certification programs, from having a book, from having multiple programs that go into there, having a licensing program that you can share with others. Like, these are all the opportunities that come from having that category defining theory and the innovation gap methodology. So when you do this correctly, your clients become your best marketing team. They bring in more high intent buyers without you having to lift a finger. This is the power of the EasyS method, where we align innovation, systems, and delivery so that you can actually dominate the market, attract clients on autopilot, and scale predictably. So if you are listening and you're ready to see what this looks like inside of your own business, I want to invite you to apply for a growth optimization call. Now, on this call, you and I are going to sit down. We're going to look at what your current client acquisition looks like, what your positioning in the market is, where your current innovation opportunities are, and how the EasyS method can be applied within your business so that you can actually create a binge bingeable self-selling system that gets your leads to sell themselves, all powered by your innovation gap methodology. So head on over to easyesleads.com/call to apply. Now, if you want to look a little bit more at what it actually takes to create an easy yes in your business, how you actually develop a methodology, a theory, creating the actual systems behind the scenes, I want to invite you to check out our on-demand limited series called The Netflix Effect, where I break down exactly how we leverage this process to create a self-selling system so that you can actually get your leads to sell themselves. So you can head on over to thenetflixeffect.com to check this out now. Now, I hope that you've walked away from this episode completely shifting the way you think about what it actually takes to create a market of one, what it means to create a category of your own. So you're no longer competing, you're no longer becoming a commodity in your market. So if it has helped you, I would love and appreciate if you could take 60 seconds to rate, review, or share it with a friend, because it allows us to ensure that we're creating a movement where people are thinking differently about what it actually takes to grow and scale a successful, sustainable, and scalable business without spending years in the making and without all the fluff. So until next time, here's to keeping it real.